Healing in Final Fantasy XIV is not fun. Why?
Greetings, travelers. It's me, resident scholar masochist, and now dejected degenerate weeaboo. Every
What?
job I touch turns to dust. In
Oh
today's
no.
class, we are going to examine the green role type in Final Fantasy XIV, a topic that I'm sure people think I've talked about before, but you would be wrong. On paper, being a healer in an MMORPG means that you have to heal people and keep them alive. Yes, this is true. But what do you do with your time when you don't need to heal anything? Yes,
DPS?
you do damage. This is it. You now know how to play a healer in any MMORPG. I've educated you. I no longer need to make any guides.
You know what's funny? There are actually still some people, and I've had them in my group, that purely heal. They will not DPS at all. Have you ever encountered this, that you did like a dungeon with like a group, and there was like one person that was the healer and they didn't do any DPS? They literally went AFK when nobody was going down and stuff. Like I had this happen to me before, and not just once, but a couple of times actually.
Obviously, healing is not technically this simple. The problem with games like these is that you need players to fulfill all role types in order for content to even be run in the first place.
Yeah.
A problem that every developer has to try and find a way to fix so that people who play the only
And
fun
balance
jobs
it.
in the game don't have to wait around for 45 minutes to get into a piece of required content in order to progress the juicy story, which is the only thing that people care about. Final Fantasy XIV healing has been through a lot over the years, going from the good old days of overhealing causing you to generate a fuckload of aggro and get beat to death, to the days of pressing cleric stance. What we have had since the introduction of Shadowbringers especially is a massive overhaul of the healing system in order to lower the barrier of entry to the point where any tadpole left out in the open to asphyxiate can maybe pick it up. What we are left with is about 1 billion changes and enough healers playing the game to finally make waiting around not take half an eternity.
DPS, it's horrible. Like each time I'm trying to do like Duty Finder or something, like I have to wait a long time on DPS. As a healer, it's like below 5 minutes, but DPS sometimes 20 minutes almost. It's crazy. Like there's definitely a high demand for freaking healers. Tanks, I don't know. I've never tanked in Final Fantasy XIV. Like tanking is something I want to try next at some point, but I'm not ready yet for tanking. But at one point I will also tank, and I found there's also a very very low waiting time. Like the period is also below 5 minutes.
With so many changes to healing, though, it now feels like fucking garbage. When you first pick up
Wow.
a healer in this game, it can be quite overwhelming, as you look at your entire party's health bars and feel like the world is going to shatter at any given
Oh, no.
moment. Simply get good, scrub. You will eventually realize the ultimate truth. There is not a whole lot of outcoming damage at every second in this game, to the point where if you are new, you are probably way more focused than necessary. Even though I'm evil, I don't hate people who are new to healing for struggling at first, because everybody does. Everyone who tries to be decent at this game has gone through a learning curve.
I've actually had one guy in my group that was a DPS on a healer, like literally. And I actually talked to this person. I asked, "What's up? Like, why you never heal, or why do you only heal every couple of minutes?" And the person said, "Oh, it's my first time on a healer. I was like DPS for the whole time that I was like playing." And I actually understood like where he was coming from, and we were like very patient with that guy. But yeah, that's when you change the role. Is definitely, if it's like a new thing, different. Like, yeah, so. I guess it was his old habit that just kicked back like in and like, I have to DPS, but he's on a healer now. And yeah, if you guys are new to this channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content.
No matter how talented or perfect they may present themselves. The
Yeah.
downside is that being awful at healing sometimes has consequences in brain-dead content compared to being a DPS who might as well not exist in terms of being able to get from point A to
Wow.
point B. This is why healing has such a low focus on DPS buttons, so that you don't have to
Yeah,
maintain
only
some
3 skills
complex
or so.
DPS rotation on top of keeping the party topped up. Except, not really. The thing that is stupid to me is that there is a leveling system in this game. Healing at first should be easy to pick up, but you would expect it to get a little more complex as you level. Instead, what you have is one filler button and one dot to maintain on every healer, and that is it. You get to keep that from
Yeah.
level 16 to level 90. The exact same filler rotation for your entire existence without anything new or stimulating being added except for a fancy new healing button.
You know what? I actually think if they added like one more DPS skill to every healer, at least one, I don't think this will become too difficult to play a healer. Because I have been in some dungeon runs on Astrologian, for example, and Astrologian is really, really complex in comparison to other healers. Because you not only heal your party, you buff them with cards so they have increased DPS, and you're also dealing DPS. You're doing like 3 things at once in comparison to some other healers, right? And I actually felt like at some points, even like if I had one more DPS skill, it wouldn't hurt my rotation that much or would make me have a super hard time. So I think like one DPS skill is okay to add to all the healers, in my opinion.
That will solve the exact same problem that you can already solve. The closest thing that we have to any variance on this right now is energy drain optimizations on Scholar and Phlegma Balls, which is just a button that you have to manage slightly more, and despite Sage being a side-grade Scholar, it somehow feels like it gives it more depth, while also making it painfully obvious how ludicrously shallow healing has become. As I've said earlier, healers have changed a lot over the years. Despite this, the thing that hasn't changed very much at all is fight design. Encounters do not output damage at insanely high volumes unless you're running Savage at minimum item level or ultimate content in general. And even then, it doesn't matter that incoming damage can be fairly high when it is very calculated and consistent with each encounter. Learning fights while healing.
I think if you know the mechanics when this and that happens, and it's not your first time doing this on a healer, for example, you can actually guess when you have to go on the more healing phase and when to be more on the DPS phase. Like, I've noticed this as well when fighting against, for example, Ifrit, like here in this example. Like, there's like this phase where he does this, where he does that, where there's something on the ground. Like, there's definitely, if you have done this before, a lot of phases where you can purely DPS on a healer and your group is actually just fine.
Healing can be kind of cool, but you will eventually boil it down to where you plan to place your
Guys,
cooldowns
you need to
and go
focus
back to
the
mashing
nails.
one button, simply begging for something to go wrong so that you have something new and interesting to do instead of going through the exact same repetitive motion. And I know exactly what you're going to say next, which is, hang on, isn't that what DPS players do? The answer is yes, but your non-stop filler rotation on DPS and even tanks is infinitely more interesting than what you get to do on healer.
Yeah, because
even
it's more
Warriors
complex.
core GCDs, which get made fun of, are way more complex than pressing one singular button. What's so stupid about this is that Final Fantasy XIV fight design has been this way forever. It was born and raised in a system in which healers had like 3 more DPS buttons. And the idea of contributing...
You know why I think they made it like that? That is my guess. They want to make this more casual player friendly. And for those that are new to the game, they maybe thought like with the design of healers, like the devs thought, hey, let's make something that's not too complex for healers when they DPS, or they can DPS at all, because there are like casual players and new players, and if they have like 4 5 DPS skills, it's too tough for them. Let's just give them 2 things to maintain. I think that's why they made it like that, to make it more beginner friendly and more casual friendly.
into DPS checks as a core part of playing healer is baked into the system. It is baffling that there is such an outright refusal to embrace the way the game is fucking designed and working.
Yeah.
People are usually okay with fight mechanics and how they can resolve them. It is insane to me that the proposed solution to the problem of making healers' kits 99% healing is changing the encounters, not only because if it's not broken, don't fix it, but also because you can't change any of the old fights. You know, the old ultimates that people still like to go and clear.
Yeah.
So even if you manage to overhaul the entire fight design system in this game to make it so that random healing is required, or make healing output much more important, you still invalidate all of the content that came out before. Which is just like, what is going to be easier? Making the DPS rotations to healers ever so slightly more interesting at
Just one
close to
skill.
maximum level? Or completely changing
One
an
more
entire
skill,
part
please.
of the way that your design team makes fights and encounters. You know what will be surprising though? I don't even want to remove the one DPS button playstyle. Let one healer have this stupid ass rotation, probably white mage. That way people don't lose their unga bunga roll. Embrace some uniqueness where this game allows you to. Unique healing buttons do not work super well. That's why everything is about unique ways to deal damage in this game. Part of what makes Sage so incredibly frustrating isn't that it's bad to play, but that it's literally a functional equivalent scholar with some very, very minor differences. Cardia is just Fey Blessing, but instead of a stupid fairy just casting it for fun, it's something that you target and proc by pressing your DPS buttons. They did not create a healer that heals by doing damage, they created a scholar that heals by proxy on every broil cast instead of having a pet.
That's actually a good idea. What about like some skills that actually do healing? Become also DPS skills. Like that would be actually cool if healers actually had that in Final Fantasy XIV. Like a skill that damages, but not as hard hitting as a DPS does, but it actually heals at the same time someone. Kind of like Life Drain on a Warlock in freaking World of Warcraft, something like that. You basically attack and then you get like a health back, but it doesn't go to you. It goes to like everyone, or to maybe the one that has the lowest health or something. Yeah, that would be cool if they gave healers this kind of skill that DPSs but heals someone at the same time.
I don't hate Sage, but
Like
I
a
hate
life
what it
drain.
represents. An unwillingness to push healers in a direction that they have been in the past. You removed what I would consider to be the most frustrating things to manage on this role, which was old aggro, old protect, and good old cleric stance.
Wow.
We don't need to go all the way back to old Heaven's War DPS check bullshit, fuckface, max DPS scholar, or perish shit. I just don't want every single healer to feel exactly the same at the core. Because it turns out this game is designed with the healers DPSing about 90% of the time at a minimum, and the jobs are not designed with this core principle in mind. I sure love mashing a single button for 9/10 of my playtime, which is also why I never want to have auto combo forced down my throat if they ever decided to implement it, because I will be bored to fucking tears if I am just
Wow.
sitting there pressing a single button for the majority of my gameplay. That's the real reason of why I don't like XIV combo, but if you make it optional, fine. On top of Sage existing, we also had to sacrifice Nocturnal Sect Astro for it.
Yeah.
A job that has a playstyle around being able to utilize off GCD shielding and felt distinct from Scholar. It wasn't optimal, but man, it was viable. And it was all
Yeah, I think a lot of people are a bit upset about some of the astrologian changes. Like, if you have been playing a certain style for a while and you have been using this and then suddenly they take it from you. Like, yeah, some people feel definitely upset about it then.
also fun for everybody who enjoyed playing it. It is removed, all in the name of having 2 regen and 2 shield healers in the metagame, so that you can have one of each in a high-end duty finder specifically. Wow. Because what? Having 3 shield healers and 2 regen healers would throw the game out of balance? Tell me this. What do you plan to do when you want to add a new healer into the game? Are you going to add in 2 healers at the same time to keep this perfect ratio? Or are you going to release one
does it
type
even
and
matter?
accept the imbalance?
Yeah.
Meaning that Nocturnal Sect was removed for absolutely no fucking reason. Just ask yourself the question of what are they going to do when they add in one more healer, and you can already see the problem. Talk about an insane lack of foresight for a game that is claiming to be making expansions for the next 10 years. If you really wanted to make this high-end duty finder shit work of requiring 1 shield and 1 regen healer, you could allow Astro players to pick which sect they prefer before going to queue and move on.
Wow.
It is not that fucking hard.
Would you guys actually like that? That would be kind of like in World of Warcraft, right? Where you are on one class and you can pick like a certain spec. Like one does like shielding, one does regen and stuff like that. Like imagine you had this actually, where you have inside your job like 2 paths or something. Like what if you had a tank that's squishier but does more DPS, or a tank that's like super tanky because this one can also heal others or something. Like that would be actually interesting if you could pick some kind of role. Like on a healer on a tank you can be like a hybrid healer and tank, or hybrid DPS and tank. And on a healer you can pick between regen, shields and stuff like that. Yo, that would be actually so cool if you could do that, right? Like more customization within a certain job. Or like with the talents, like you can pick some sort of talent and then you get like a different skill. Like what if you have the option to actually get rid of one healing skill and replace it by a DPS skill or by a shielding skill or something? Yeah, that would be cool if we had like talents or something, I think.
Imagine putting a little bit more work in to make your player base happy, even though double shield and double regen were and are still viable. Fuck, it's sometimes even meta. I joked about Nocturnal Sect being removed, but man, I really can't see a good reason why, other than making the job of the development team easier, with the consequence of sacrificing a small amount of uniqueness that the game still provided. The only other thing I will mention about this is that healing is a balance of outputting adequate healing and keeping up damage.
Yeah.
This game is notorious for turbo casuals who only heal and don't DPS after playing the game for 5,000 hours. That is very different than overhealing a fuckload when you're new to healing.
Oh,
But this
shit,
game is
you
also
can't overheal.
notorious
You
for
will
high-end
aggro the
healers
boss.
that drop their whole party who fucked up a mechanic when they could have just lived through it with an extra heal. Even if you want to be an absolute fucking Machiavellian monster about it, it is going to take you less time to get a re-clear with one shitty pull than two pulls where one was shittier than the other. People already tunnel vision super hard when they shouldn't, and that's not a result of healers having a complicated rotation, but a result of basic incompetency. Giving a little more to manage is not going to make them any fucking worse when they can already be close to rock bottom. We've managed to go full circle though, where healer play rate was originally low because it was too hard, and now the play rate is super low because it is so fucking boring.
I have a question for you guys. Like, let me know in the comment section. Do you find DPSing while healing, like on a healer in Final Fantasy XIV, do you find it like super difficult and hard to DPS? Or do you feel like, hey, it's actually so easy, like I'm just sometimes using 1 or 2 DPS skills in between and refreshing my dot on the boss? Because I personally find it crazy easy. Like, I really wouldn't mind another DPS skill. How do you feel about it? Do you find it easy to like heal and DPS at the same time? Or like other MMOs, for example? Like, let me know in the comment section.
Would there be people who would be sad about losing their current playstyle that they like? Yeah,
Yes.
but it didn't seem to be a problem when fucking over healing players in the past. Yeehaw. Anyways, I think that's enough ranting on this topic for now. I will finish by saying this. Give Scholar players 2 dots, make one of them a hard
that would be
cast,
nice.
and give them Try Disaster, and make Aetherflow reset the cooldown of said Try Disaster.
Wow.
Let White Mage stay exactly the
That's a
same so
good
that we
idea.
can meme on it for being the baby healer. Bring back Nocturnal Astro, bring back AoE dots, and make Sage have some whack-ass, overcomplicated DPS rotation that baffles people's minds, and see if they embrace it or not. Because with how
love the
safe that
animations
job
of
was
Sage.
on release, it was stale before I even started playing it. If someone complains that they need to be rewarded with more DPS for their complicated job, simply tell them that the reward is being able to have fun and not being bored out of their fucking mind. Shut the fuck up about
That's
a
a
whole
good
2%
reward.
DPS variance. Now let's get out there and go back to mashing one button with drool rolling down our face.
Oh, no. Yeah, I don't know. I personally don't find healing and DPSing at the same time very hard. But yeah, I see where people are coming from if they say, oh, it's so boring on the healer because the rotation is too simple. Because, yeah, I think it is too short. Like, if you just have 1 dot and 1 DPS skill, you every once in a while click on, like, excuse me, this is like very simple. Like, for me, healer was at first a bit challenging because I had to do healing and DPS. But after, I think it was just my 2nd or 3rd dungeon, I got the hang of it. Like, I learned it very fast. I only sucked for like 2 runs or so, and then I got like somewhat decent actually. And then healer was not, I was not even afraid to be a healer anymore in dungeons. Like, at first I felt like overwhelmed. I thought I was gonna fail on a healer, but it was actually more simple than I thought it is. So yeah, I don't know. I have a good time on healing, but I do wish I had at least 1 more DPS skill. This is my feeling. And yeah, if you guys are new to this channel, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more content. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give this one a thumbs up. And I wish everyone a wonderful day. I will see you guys next time.